Hey everybody, welcome back to another Motivation Monday podcast for Monday, October 21st, 2019. How are you? Hope you've had a great weekend. Was away last week, so I missed you guys on Motivation Monday, but we are back. We are back with another episode. Going to try to give you something to think about for the week, something to consider that will hopefully improve your playing and your life as a musician. So the thing that I wanted to talk about today was an experience I had over the weekend of listening to a bunch of young saxophonists audition for me for an all-state competition. And there was one facet of everybody's playing that I was continuously writing the exact same comment on their sheet. And this was probably honestly 99% of the people that came in to audition for me. I ended up writing this on their sheet. And it has to do with jazz articulation. I think that jazz articulation is one of the most difficult things to grasp, but at the same time is one of the issues that can be fixed in the easiest way. It's just a matter of knowing what to do. So jazz articulation is interesting because I could explain it to you, and I could try to put into words the best way to articulate on your instrument in any given situation, depending on what tune you're playing over, what tempo you're playing over, what style you're playing. But the problem with that is I'm never going to be able to explain it to you in a better way than you will be able to pick it up by just imitating the best musicians in the world. So this all goes back to you cannot be a good jazz musician unless you listen and care about jazz and absorb jazz and the masters of the music that have come before us and are, peers among us right now. You have to listen to the music and you have to imitate. There's just no way to be a good musician without doing that. So what I heard was a lot of really rough articulation, a lot of really heavy articulation, a lot of stuff that just didn't really fit the style of the music that they were playing for me. And this is something I hear all the time. Now, the problem for a teacher is this is the only part of jazz education that we basically have no control over, is what our students are doing on their own time, what they're doing in their own practice sessions, or if they are actually doing what you're asking them to do outside of the very, very short period of time that we get to spend with them, actually in the same room talking. So I don't know if my students are listening. I mean, I can kind of tell by the way that they play when they do come in to see me if they're actually listening or not. But if you want to have good jazz articulation, if you want to do basically anything else when it comes to jazz, you've got to put on the recording and you've got to challenge yourself to sound exactly like your favorite players. And that's really where it's key. You want to sound like the people that you gravitate towards because that is going to be your natural style. You're going to gravitate towards what you would ultimately like to sound like. So for me, I learned to articulate from Dexter Gordon, from literally sitting for hours and playing along with Dexter Gordon recordings. And this is where I think that printed transcriptions were really, really good for me. I think I was a little bit too young, honestly, to be figuring out all of that stuff on my own. And honestly, I don't think my ears were good enough. But I had a Dexter Gordon transcription book, and that allowed me to access that music, to access being able to play along with the record, almost kind of before I was ready to figure it out on my own. But I would sit for hours with these recordings, and every time I played it, I would try to sound more like them. And eventually it came around to, okay, there's something that sounds off here between myself and Dexter. And eventually my young brain just kind of worked out, oh, it's the way that I'm tonguing. The way that I'm tonguing is really getting in the way of playing this line smoothly or lining up with Dexter's time perfectly. And these weren't the exact thoughts that came into my head. I think I was too young to articulate these thoughts, but it was just a matter of doing it so many times that I eventually just adapted to be able to sound exactly like him. And I really think that if it weren't for that exact thing, playing those Dexter Gordon transcriptions, I might not be a musician today. because when I finally got it down, it was like the greatest feeling in the world. So, of course, when I wasn't playing along with Dexter and I wasn't playing these transcriptions, I tried to sound exactly like him because he was the hippest saxophone player I'd ever heard. And I was obsessed with, being like Dexter. So that was huge for me. And for that reason, I honestly didn't study articulation that much until much later in my educational career. But I think that my articulation was okay. Of course, there were some problems with it. Everybody's going to have some issues with it. But I think I got the basic gist of it from when I was a very young kid. And it was from listening. So this is what I found myself constantly writing on everybody's sheet as a comment was listen and imitate great jazz saxophonists, and it will solve your articulation problems. So I want you to think about that this week. I want you to maybe record yourself while you're playing. And if there's something that you just don't like about your playing, consider articulation, because I think it is one of the biggest issues, and it's one facet of your playing that even if you're playing like the hippest harmonic language, you got great time, all that, your articulation can really ruin the effect of otherwise good playing. And even if you don't feel like your articulation is bad, I still want you to just imitate some great players this week. Hopefully this is a part of your routine anyway, but if it's not, you have to get on this. You really, really have to get on this. This is like no excuses time. You have got to be doing some playing along with records in your practice time. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Do it. Okay? This is one of the few things that is not tailored towards the individual. It's tailored toward everybody that wants to play this music. You have to be listening and imitating. All right? Let me know what you think about that. Is articulation an issue for you? Have you noticed this? Have you noticed this with other players? Have you noticed it in your own playing? I'd love to hear some feedback on this. You can drop that feedback in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson community group on Facebook. Let's talk about this. But anyways, I know that's a little bit of a rant, but it's just something that I feel really strongly about, and it's still on the front of my mind after hearing all those otherwise fantastic young players. They all needed to work out this articulation and need to be playing along with the masters of this music, something we can't escape. All right. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you on Friday with a regularly scheduled episode. We've got our Tune of the Month coming out on Friday, and I'm really excited about that episode. So we'll talk to you soon. Have a fantastic and inspired week, and good luck with this stuff. Bye.